This film was made possible through the generous support of the American Providence Foundation.
People would throw rocks at him, dead cats. He was really harassed terribly, especially, and usually it was instigated by the ministers. But one time, see, when they had that other pulpit in the other location, there was a door between those 4 tall windows right down in there. And there was a tree next to it. One time, Whitefield came out, and a local news reporter got up on the tree and peed on Whitefield. And he would often be, and then sometimes when Parsons and him would come out of that side door and try to go over to the parsonage, the locals would come and throw rocks at them, or dead cats, or whatever they could hurl at them, and they were really quite harassed. Now, after 30 years of ministry, he went from being that kind of treatment. I mean, there was cases where 3 times he went into a town and almost got stoned like Stephen. Wow. And he felt like he was going to be Stephen the Martyr a couple times. But now, 30 years later, he is a rock star. Everybody in town, when he goes into a town, the whole town would empty out to come here and preach. And they'd be screaming for him to preach. Well, here it is. It was September 29th. 1770. He's up in Portsmouth. He's going to go down to Exeter. He's going to meet Reverend Parsons. They're going to have lunch at this captain's house. And then they're just going to get on the horse and go down to Newburyport. And the very next day, he was going to preach here at the church. So he gets up there and he's coming down. Now, unfortunately, he was getting very sick. They said that he might have early signs of heart failure because he was very bloated and he was miserable. So by the time he got to Exeter, he didn't feel like preaching at all. But now, of course, he's famous. So they had 3,000 people began to assemble outside the captain's house screaming for him to preach. And so he didn't really want to preach because he was feeling so sick. So he sent Parsons out to preach to him. Oh, no, we don't want to hear Parsons. So we want to hear Whitefield. So Whitefield finally dragged himself up, as sick as he was, and he goes out and he gets on a hogshead. What in the world is a hogshead? A hogshead is a beer barrel the size of a man. Ooh. And if you go to Portsmouth Strawberry Bank, they have examples of hogsheads there. And so he got up on top of the hogshead so he could preach to this large crowd. And he preached to them. And many people came to Christ. But they said that he was like really feeble. But as soon as he got going, the Spirit of God touched him. And they said it was one of the best sermons he ever did. Well, after he was done, he was really spent. Now, he had felt that he had enough strength because he believed in what was called pulpit sweats. He would get up there, and I saw this actually in Bible college. This one old guy got up there. They had to help him to get up to the pulpit. By the time he was done, he was hurling epithets and everything. He was a powerful preacher.
And I go, wow, where did that come from? They could hardly get him up there. That's pulpit sweats. Well, Whitfield figured that would make him feel better. Well, after preaching in Exeter, he did not feel good. He was really still sick. He got up on their horses and they went down to the Merrimack River over here and took the ferry over, and they could barely get him over here. But finally, after much struggling, they got him to come at 5 o'clock over to Reverend Parsons' manse, which is the parsonage over. So they went in there, and if you look, you see the front door, if you really get a good look. The dining room was on the left side as soon as you come in. So they went over there, and he sat down to have his his supper. Well, he had his Bible and his candlestick, and here's next thing you know, there's a huge mob out here, and they're screaming, "Preach, preach, we want to hear you preach." And he's really, really sick. He's not feeling good at all. So he says, I can't do it. So he gets his Bible and candlestick and goes up the stairs. But then as he goes up, he changes his mind. And it says in the historical records that he preaches from the stairs. Well, if you go to your house and you see a second floor, all you're going to see is a wall. Nothing there. So how in the world could all these people see him? Well, I found out. See, I pick up people from this nursing home that's up on High Street, and it's a Georgian mansion. That's a Georgian mansion. So I'm sitting there waiting for one of the people to come out of the room, and I look over and I see, oh, that's what it is. In a Georgian mansion, the stairs only go halfway up to the second floor. It goes to a landing, which goes to that window above the front door, and then if you want to go on to the second floor, you get back on the stairs and go up. And if the lights are just right as you walk by, you can actually see that second floor up there. Well, what happened was he was going to go just to his room, and then he couldn't resist. So he gets on that landing, and he goes to that window. He opens it up, and he puts the candlestick on the sill. And he tells the people, listen, I'm going to preach, and when I'm done, I want you to go home, and I'm going to go to bed. And I'll signify that by setting this candlestick on, and when it burns to the base, you go home. Well, I've done barbecues in the backyard. When you do candles, it takes forever. So we didn't know how long he preached. Well, we looked in our archives. He preached for 2 hours. He's going to die that night. I mean, he preached fiercely up there, and the crowd all loved it. And then he dispersed finally, and he goes in around 9 o'clock to his room. And he sits at the chair, but he can't breathe. He's starting to have asthma, terrible. So they with all the windows, he'd open them up, try to gasp for air. Then he would close it up and try to do it again, and it just got worse and worse. About 1 o'clock, he realized that he wasn't going to make it. So he said a very famous quote. He says, I'd rather wear out than rust out. About 1 or 2 o'clock, about 3 o'clock, he collapsed. And they tried to get him going, and they tried to frisk his, but it did no good. By 6 o'clock, he passed on. Well, they had a big funeral on Tuesday. And they had, according to the historical record, they had 6,000 people march through that church. And they had a mile-long procession. The ship's cannons were firing, and the bells were ringing, and he was then taken and put in that old original crypt and left for the ages.